From within Canvas, there are multiple ways to assess students, and one of the simplest ways is using quizzes. So let me go ahead and walk you through that process and show you how we can go about creating a quiz for students. So as you can see, there is an option over here on the left called Quizzes. We're going to go ahead and click on that button. You can see I have a couple in here already, but in order to create a new quiz, you would click on the yellow-orange button in the upper right-hand corner that says Plus Quiz. Now from here, you're going to notice that there are two tabs. The first is going to allow you to set up all of the, as they are naming it, details of the quiz, some options, we'll talk about that in just a second, as well as the second tab, which is for adding in individual quiz questions. Let's start with the details. From here, we're going to give it a name and instructions. This would be anything that you need them to know, if there's a time limit, things like that. You might want to put those directly inside of here. I'll go ahead and add in some details now. Okay, so I wrote very simply, this quiz has 10 questions and you'll have 30 minutes to complete the quiz. This is a closed note quiz. Of course, you could put anything in there. So down here, you've got some options under quiz type. Generally speaking, the folks want it to be graded, so you would leave that as the default, but you do have some other options in here as well. Shuffle the answers is exactly what it sounds like. It will shuffle the A, B, C, D options. One thing to keep in mind here, if you have answers that say A and B, remember if you click this option, that won't make sense to them anymore. So if A is an answer, B is an answer, and C says A and B, that won't work if you choose that. Here's our time limit. We said this was going to be 30 minutes, since that's what we set up here. Allow multiple attempts. Again, this is personal preference. This will allow the student to take it as many times or whatever number of attempts you allow. You also have some options here if you want to keep the highest, the latest, or the average of them. So if you want to allow them to take it 3 times, let's say, and you want them to all be averaged together, you can do that. This is some options on what you want the students to see once they take their quiz. So let students see their quiz responses. Incorrect questions will be marked in the student feedback. You can also allow students to see the correct answers at a specific date and time. So if everybody is taking it for, let's say, a week, the next week, maybe you want to show them the correct answers. Or maybe you don't. Really depends on the quiz and how you're setting it up. But this will allow students to see the correct answers on a certain day and time. This one down here, show one question at a time, will literally show just one question on the screen, and then they will click next to see the next one. If you don't choose this, they'll see a kind of a scrolling list of questions on the screen. Okay, this access code is really for another tool that you might be using. Coming down here, you will assign this. So I'll go ahead and assign this. Everyone is the default. Let's say this is due on, I don't know, the 7th. One plug here for using due dates everywhere is that these will show up in the student calendar for this particular course and on their dashboard. So I always recommend going ahead and putting in a due date so that this will show up as a reminder to students when something is due. Available from, let's say I don't want them to take it until tomorrow at, let's say, 8 a.m. they can start. And the until means when do you want this quiz to close? For me, typically these two things match each other. They don't have to, in that maybe you just leave it open indefinitely, but it does have a due date, or maybe it closes at a certain time. Up to you. All right, we're going to go ahead and choose to save and publish this. Now this quiz is published, but we don't have any questions in it yet. So let's go ahead and hit edit again. And we're going to go back under the questions tab up here at the top. This is where you add in literally each question. So if you click on new question, you'll see all the typical things that you would think you would see in a quiz, under quiz options for questions. So for example, I'll do a multiple choice. I'll go ahead and put in a question now. All right, so my question here is, what is the name of NKU's mascot? I have got 3 answers here. In order to indicate what the correct answer is, all you have to do is click. See how you can actually see that little green arrow pop up anywhere? Click where the correct answer is. So if this were the correct answer, we would click and it would go away from that area, that answer, and highlight this one. So this is the correct answer. Notice I only did 3 in this particular question. I can delete this out if I don't want if I don't want a fourth answer, I can always add in another answer as well. So that's that question. I can go ahead and update the question, and now it'll allow me to add in a new question. So this time I'll do maybe a true-false question. Okay, so my question here is NKU is located in Highland Heights, Kentucky. Is that true or false? Again, my correct answer indicator is right here. I can make it false if that were in fact the answer. It is actually true. Update the question. Okay, and you can move on and add in as many questions as you would like. When you are done with your questions, we're going to go ahead and choose to save. Okay, so we get kind of a preview or maybe a recap of what the quiz question, or the quiz rather, looks like. We've got our limit of 30 minutes and kind of how we answer those questions within the details section. So from here, students could definitely access a quiz from inside the quiz area. But what might be more helpful is if you actually placed it in the module, where they would take it. For example, if you have weekly modules and you want them to take it during week 3, you can actually put this quiz, now that it's created, inside of modules. If you wanted to do that, you would click on modules here. I'm going to create a new module called week 3, let's say. Then from inside this module, I want to add content. I would click on the plus button right here. I would say I want to add in a quiz, and it will show me all of the quizzes that I already have. Which one do you want to put in module 3? I want to put in our practice quiz and add item, and there it is. So again, you can leave it inside of quizzes, but often if you are organizing your course under modules, I would recommend putting it under that module so students get used to finding the same content where they're used to seeing it. And that's the gist of quizzes. There are a few more individual options, things like that. I'll just mention that one of them, when you go to your quiz, you have an option that says moderate this quiz. If you click on that, I just want to mention this because this does, I do get this question quite often. How do you give more time or more attempts to an individual student? And that is under this moderate quiz option. So if a student has a accommodation where they need extra time, or you are making an accommodation and students get an extra attempt, what you would do is find your student. You would click on this little pencil off to the right, and here are two options here, extra attempts and extra time on each attempt. You could give extra of either one of those and save it individually for students. If you have multiple students that need that, choose all the students you want to give that accommodation to, and then make that change. So that's probably the biggest thing with quizzes that is asked about, kind of making modifications to it. So this was quizzes. I hope this helped. Let me know of any questions that you have.